So guys, we got to talk about the huge news for the Indiana Fever. So this is something that has been going on for quite a while. I'm actually surprised nobody has covered this, or nobody that I've seen has covered this, because I actually had this video listed to be done about a week ago, and no one's talked about it. And it is a new position that the Indiana Fever are trying to hire, which is going to be huge. It's going to be genuinely huge for the team. It's going to be huge because we're starting to see, again, WNBA move into the modern era of basketball. And if you want to help move to the modern era of basketball, help me try to hit 40.4k subscribers by the end of the day. We're trying to hit 40.5k by Christmas. I don't think we're going to do it, but if we can hit 40.5k by Christmas, that would be absolutely insane. So, anyway, we got to talk about it. The Indiana Fever hiring a data science researcher. So, if you want to know what they have to do, this is their job. Working to create a comparison model in support of a global index of women's basketball league to use to assist in scouting applications, using tools such as these to analyze a wider range of data from numerous sources. Lads, they're going to be going and doing what, to be fair, teams should have been doing all along, and they're going to be scouting properly. They're going to be scouting properly, lads. They're going to be scouting using the data. And that's the thing where it's like, you can't purely scout off analytics. But I'll always say this, where it's like, analytics, AI, all of this stuff, when used to improve the knowledge, you can use it to improve the knowledge of a human. But if you replace a human with an algorithm, it'll never work. It'll never work. But like, it's a really interesting situation. And I think we have a lot of, I would say, backwards WNBA scouting and WNBA logic. And if you're Caitlin Clark, I do think that like what the Fever did was a bit different. Like the WNBA still thinks the mid-range shot is a good shot. And I don't mean like, I don't mind the occasional mid-range shot. Like, I actually don't hate the pull-up. I mean that. Like, I actually don't hate the pull-up mid-range shot occasionally. I just don't like the mid-range as a go-to. Like, somebody has... I think a mid-range... The NBA has gone too far about it, where it's like, you've got to... In my opinion, you've got to be able to hit the mid-range because it'll free up everything. It means they can't back off you in that situation. You become harder to guard. So you need a mid-range. But, like, it shouldn't be anyone's go-to. Anyone who's a go-to mid-range shooter. Like, A'ja Wilson is much more efficient going downhill to the basket than she is shooting from mid. But she'll still settle for the mid-range shot. And people are like, oh, she's got all this. And it's like, man, if A'ja Wilson just took one hard dribble left every single time, she would be... she'd be really good. She'd be really freaking good. Well, not even really good. She'd be even better. She's already really good. Jesus, what am I saying? And, like, the WNBA is still running double bigs. They're still running... The 3-and-D player barely exists because point guards' jobs were to dribble the ball and pass the bigs, and everybody came through, like, Gino Auriemma's system, where that 3-and-D spot-up shooter doesn't matter because there's almost like an egalitarian system. And then you're having to go to Europe to get these type of players. You're going to have to get to Europe to get these lengthy 3-and-D players like Leonie Fibic. And the fact that while she was winning MVPs in the Spanish league, she was being tossed from team to team in the WNBA like she wasn't the MVP of the Spanish league. It's, like, it is what it is. And if we can see more analytics, especially when they're so far behind in terms of, like, the way the game is looked at in the league, it'll be huge. And I would hope that these analytics can find players that maybe other teams haven't been able to find. Like, you can find... There are Leonie Fibic type players in Europe. There are. And I think it might be easier to get them over right now. I think A'ja Sivka, she's not going to come over next year. I think she could be... Like, if I'm looking at the draft, I'm not joking when I say this, I don't know how much... Like, considering the fact that Paige Becker is born in 2001 and A'ja Sivka is born in 2005, Like, Paige is 4 years older than Ija Sivka. I would, like, obviously you have to take Paige. I would consider taking Ija Sivka, who turned 19 like 2 weeks ago, over Paige Beckers, who turned 23 a few months ago. I would consider doing that because she is a 6'4" wing sniper. I don't think she's there for Indiana at 8, but like if she's there for Indiana at 8, obviously Indiana are taking her at 8. You don't need her for next year, but like she is she's that level player. But it's the same with Dominique Malonga, who's 4 years younger than Paige, who's been the best player in Euro Cup, one of the best players in Euro Cup this year. For me, it's really you're going to have to see better scouting overseas. And I do think when it comes to these analytical models, you're going to start to see players being recruited, maybe from teams that don't make the tournament. Like, let's just say hypothetically Lucy Olsen makes as a 3rd round draft pick this year. But it's like, man, Lucy Olsen, if she stayed at Villanova, even if they didn't make the tournament, would still be serious like player. She was one of the top scorers in college basketball, but draft experts only care about 7 or 8 teams. So now we might start to see teams looking in other places where it's like, even in 2019, Meg Gustafson Player of the Year is like the 19th pick in the draft because, it's only Iowa. But in a redraft, as good as 2019 was, she still probably goes like 10th. But yeah, it's huge. It's absolutely huge. And I think it's not only huge for Indiana. I think every league's our copycat league. And this is such an important season because they don't have the money to go for like anything too crazy. Like if they go and give up, if they are confident in their scouting overseas, you don't need that 2026 first. You can give that up to get Satu. If you're confident in Satu Sabally, and you are confident in in her staying, you can give up Smith in a first. You can give up Smith in your 2026 first for Satu, if Satu wants to leave. Like because of a 1 year rental potential, you're not going to get more than that. But give up your 2026 first. Not the end of the world, honestly. And yeah, if you're however confident you are with your scouting, and if you become more confident in your scouting, you become less reliant on draft picks, because these players are 22, 23 years old coming out of the draft. But if you're confident in your scouting overseas, you can find an undrafted 21-year-old overseas that might be better than a 12th pick in the draft. So yeah, it is an interesting one. And my biggest thing is that global index of women's basketball leagues. They're not just looking to college. And I think you can get your best value in the W from overseas. I really can. It's an untapped market. It's like in the 90s or the 2000s where you could get or in the early, maybe the 90s is the best thing, where you can get Kukoc for cheap, where you can find Drazen Petrovic for cheap. You can find Marcelonas for cheap. You can find Vlade for cheap. You can just find these guys overseas that are genuinely cheap. Heck, Houston, not the greatest college in the world, getting Hakeem Olajuwon because he didn't know any better. You can get a lot of these players on good rookie deals overseas, especially if you can have a model and you can send scouts over there. I think that's where you find the players that will fit the modern archetype that will suit Caitlin Clark better. But anyway, I'll see you guys.